Assalamu alaikum. Let us start here, student, another lecture of, of taxation. Basically, in the previous lecture, we did discuss joint taxation rule on a jointly owned asset. And we also discussed child income. We did discuss marriage allowance as well in the previous lecture. In today's lecture, we'll be discussing something on pension. And before coming to this, let me explain a few things. And obviously, we are doing Finance Act 2022. Don't worry at all. Pensions. Basically, in UK and especially in our syllabus, we have two types of pensions. One is an occupational pension plan. Occupational pension plan. Actually, occupational, you can only become an individual can only become a member of an occupational pension plan. Number one, that particular individual is an employee. Second, employer is running this occupational pension plan. Obviously, then you can participate in occupational pension plan. Otherwise, you cannot participate in this occupational pension plan. So obviously, everybody is not the employee in UK. Then what should be done for the pension? Because people are worried when they reach at their retirement age, then they're worried about their retirement age, that at that time they should be having enough income so that they can spend their rest of the life. What if someone is not an employee, and or if someone is an employee but the employer is not running any occupational pension plan? So that individual cannot be a member of this occupational pension plan. So HMRC has given another solution. They have given a solution to this. That solution is personal pension plan. Personal pension plan. So basically, when it comes to pensions, we have two types of pension plan. One is occupational pension plan. Another is personal pension plan, like you have taken insurance policy for yourself, for example. So in our syllabus, we have two registered pension scheme. One is occupational pension scheme. Another is personal pension scheme. Okay. Just one or two points which you need to know about this occupational pension plan, then I'll come to this personal pension plan. In case of occupational pension plan, when employer is contributing in occupational pension plan for the employee, or and employer is contributing in personal pension plan again for the employee. So simply it is an exempt benefit for the employee. Exempt benefit means employee is not supposed to pay any tax on that. Of course, it is a benefit. Someone else is paying for you in a pension. Someone else is contributing in the pension scheme for you. So obviously it is a benefit for you. But that is an exempt benefit. So simply employer's contribution for employee or employees in any one or both pension plans is an exempt benefit for the employee, is an exempt benefit for the employee. Obviously, we have not studied employment income yet. We will study inshallah, don't worry at all. Then these points will come again. Employer's contribution for employee or for employees in any one or both of pension plan is an exempt benefit for the employee. For employer's contribution, employer's contribution in pension plans for employees is an allowable expense. Allowable expense means while calculating, let's say, trading income for the entire business, while calculating the income for the entire business, this contribution of employer will be deducted. So dear student, you just need to know one thing. If your employer is contributing for you it is an exempt benefit, but obviously for the employer it is an expense. An employer will deduct that contribution from his or her trading profit. Repeat. If employer is contributing for the employees, either in occupational pension plan or personal pension plan or even in both, so that is treated as an exempt benefit for employees. So, but such contribution for the employer for employee is an allowable expense, and that will be deducted while calculating profit of the business. Okay. Now, that is something relating to occupational pension plan. If employer contributes, then what happens? So point number one, point number two. Now let's go for point number three. Now let's talk about if employee contributes in occupational pension plan. Employees contribution in occupational pension plan reduces employment income. Simply it is treated as an expense. If employee is contributing obviously for himself or herself, but in occupational pension plan, such contribution reduces the employment income. Repeat. If employee is contributing in occupational pension plan, then such contribution reduces employment income. So employee's contribution in occupational pension plan reduces employment income simply means such contribution is an expense for the employee. Fourth, employees gross PPC. Now let's talk about personal pension contribution. Employees gross personal pension contribution is not an expense for the individual. It's not an expense for the employee. So when employee or when any individual is contributing gross PPC for himself or herself, such contribution is not an expense. Now the question arises, then what are the benefits of gross personal pension contribution? The way back we did discuss the benefits. Let us discuss again. So let me first repeat. Any individual who is contributing gross PPC for himself or herself, that is not treated as an expense. Any employee who is contributing in gross PPC, such contribution is not an expense for that individual. Okay. Now let us just discuss what are the advantages, what are the benefits of gross PPC. Advantages or benefits of gross personal pension contribution. Number one benefit, by the gross PPC amount, your basic and higher rate band will increase. Basic rate band, which is having a limit of 37,700, the same limit which was in Finance Act 2021, it is the same limit in Finance Act 2022 as well. So basic rate band plus gross PPC. Higher rate band 1,50,000 plus gross PPC. So number one benefit is when someone is making a gross PPC, it increases your basic rate and higher rate band limits. Okay. Second benefit, whatever individual pays, it is treated as 80% and 20% is actually paid by HMRC. 20% is paid by the HMRC. So whatever individual is contributing, that is treated as 80%. 20% is paid by HMRC. Third and final, gross PPC. Gross PPC reduces adjusted net income. It is possible that due to gross PPC, your adjusted net income goes below 1 lakh or become 1 lakh. If someone is having adjusted net income either 100,000 or less than that, then that individual gets the entire personal allowance 12570. So actually there are three benefits for any individual who is contributing in PPC. The advantages of gross PPC: number one, it increases basic and higher rate band limit. Second, whatever individual is paying, it is treated as 80%, 20% is paid by HMRC. And third and last, gross PPC reduces adjusted net income. You can go back and check. We did discuss this adjusted net income scenario. Because when adjusted net income is more than 1 lakh, then it reduces your personal allowance. Let me give you the format of adjusted net income again. You have to take net income. Simply from this net income, we deduct gross PPC. You will get adjusted net income. Okay. If adjusted net income exceeds 1 lakh, then your personal allowance reduces. So your personal allowance is 12570 less the reduction, adjusted net income minus 1 lakh into 50%. Final point. If someone is having adjusted net income less than equal to greater than 1,25,140, then personal allowance becomes zero. Repeat. If someone is having adjusted net income 1,25,140, then simply personal allowance becomes zero. Okay. So a little bit revision also you can say. So let us revise again. Actually, when we talk about pension, so we have two types of pension in our course. One is occupational pension plan and another is personal pension plan. Both are the registered pension scheme. Okay. Now in UK, HMRC does encourage people to contribute in pension plans so that at the retirement age they should be having enough funds to spend their remaining life. In other words, they should not become burden on the state. Okay. But the question arises, how much an individual can contribute in pension plan in one tax year. Repeat. The question is how much an individual can maximum contribute in pension plan in one tax year. If there is any limit, then there are two questions. If someone contributes less than the limit, then what happens? And if someone contributes more than the limit, then what happens? So let us discuss all these points over here. Actually, annual allowance of pension. Annual allowance of pension is actually 40,000 pound. It is same in Finance Act 2022 as well. It was same in 2021 also. So instead of this, we can write tax year 2022-23. So HMRC has imposed a maximum annual allowance in which it will give pension relief. Annual allowance for tax year 22-23 is 40,000 pound. A person is entitled for annual allowance if he is a member of a registered pension, and we have two types of registered pension scheme in our course. One is occupational pension and another is personal pension. Okay. Now, for example, leave this. For example, we know that the annual allowance for the pension is 40,000 pound. What if someone has contributed less than that? If you have contributed less than the 40,000 pound, then unused limit is carried forward for 3 tax years and it is used on FIFO basis. How do we carry forward? How do we use on FIFO basis? We are discussing in a minute, inshallah. Unused annual allowance can be carried forward up till 3 years on FIFO basis. Let me explain that. For example, but a very important point, whatever rules right now we are discussing relating to annual allowance of pension, they are only applicable for the individual who is a member of a registered pension scheme, and registered pension scheme are occupational pension or another is personal pension. So either you are a member of only one of, you must be a member of at least one of them. If you're a member of two of them, then it's really nice of you, but at least whatever rules we are discussing right now, they are only applicable when you are a member of at least one of the schemes. Okay. Now, for example, if I talk about tax here, let's say 1920, the annual allowance limit is 40,000. 2021, the annual allowance limit is 40,000. 21-22, the annual allowance limit is 40,000. Assuming in 1920 we did not use this 40,000, so entire 40,000 is unused. Assuming in 2021 we did not use this 40,000 limit, and assuming in 2021 we did not use this 40,000, which means that when current tax year comes 22-23, so in the current tax year 22-23, the maximum annual allowance which will be available to you will be 40,000 of the current year and unused limits of previous 3 tax years. And if you have not used any limit in 1920, then entire 40,000 is available. If you have not used any limit in the 2021, again the 40,000 is available, which means that in this case, the maximum annual allowance limit available to you in the tax year 22-23 will be 1,60,000. Provided that this particular individual has not used annual allowance limit previously. Okay. Now there are two questions. How do we use this annual allowance limit? Look at this. Annual allowance limit will be used. Employer's contribution in occupational pension plan. If your employer is contributing for you, then obviously this annual limit will be used. Employee contribution in occupational pension plan, it is also possible that employee is also contributing. Employer's contribution in personal pension plan, very important point. When employer is contributing in personal pension plan for the employee, then also this limit is consumed. Finally, individual gross PPC. The individual for whom we are basically solving the question, if that individual is also contributing in PPC, so that by the gross PPC amount this limit will be utilized. So let's say the tax year becomes 22-23, the amount is 40,000. So let's assume Your employer has contributed in occupational pension plan for you, we'll deduct that. Employees contribution in occupational pension plan, we'll deduct that also. Employer's contribution plan in personal pension and individual gross PPC. Now there are two possibilities. Either you are having the remaining, either you have used the entire 40,000 limits, or you have not used the entire 40,000 limits. If there's a positive amount, then it is carried forward. Basically, let me explain. Just a minute. I want to explain here. Let's talk about the tax year 22-23. The annual allowance limit is 40,000 pound. Okay. Assuming this is the first tax year of an individual who has become a member of a registered pension scheme. And obviously, if someone has just become a member of registered pension scheme in the tax year 22-23, then previously that particular individual has no unused limits, because previously this individual was not a member of registered pension scheme. Okay, just for the sake of explanation, I'm assuming that this individual has become a member of registered pension scheme in the current tax year, which is 22-23. Okay, previously no unused limit is available. So annual allowance for the current tax year is 40,000 pound. Now we will deduct less employer's contribution, assuming employers contributing for this individual. Employer's contribution in, let's say, occupational pension plan, it is assuming 10,000. I'm just assuming, in order to explain you, assuming employers contributing for this individual in personal pension, which is 15,000. Now less employees contribution, employees contribution. Assuming this employee is contributing for himself in occupational pension plan 5,000, and there's a gross PPC, gross personal pension of, let's say, 5,000 as well. So the limit is 40. Out of that 40, if I deduct 10, 15, and 5 and 5, so still we have unused limit of 5,000. You can see that the total of these contribution is 35, and annual allowance limit is 40. So still unused limit is 5,000. This unused limit will be carried forward for 3 tax years and used on FIFO basis. Carry forward for 3 tax years, and it will be used on FIFO basis. But there's another possibility. What if the contribution exceeds the 40,000 limit? What if the contribution exceeds the 40,000 limit? Then what happens? Let me first explain. When your contribution is less than the annual allowance limit, then unused annual allowance limit is carried forward for 3 tax years and it is used on FIFO basis. I'm just going to explain you FIFO as well, don't worry at all. But let me repeat. If your contribution is less than 40,000 pounds, then unused limit is carried forward for 3 tax years. Okay. Now, and it is used on FIFO basis. Now, another question is, what if the contribution exceeds annual allowance limit? Now listen. Assuming we know that annual allowance in tax year 22-23 is 40,000 pound. Assuming the contribution by the employee and employer, total contribution, let's say, assuming this individual is not an employee, if this individual is not an employee, then obviously contribution Oppc cannot come. Assuming this individual is not an employee, is just a sole trader, and he has made contribution in gross PPC. Okay. And again, I'm just, for the sake of simplicity, I'm assuming previously it does not have any unused limits. So let's say the gross personal pension contribution is 50,000. So 10,000, the negative amount comes. Basically, this 10,000 negative amount is called annual allowance charge. This is annual allowance charge. If someone has contributed more than the annual allowance limit, then annual allowance charge arises, and that annual allowance charge is treated as a non-saving income, and tax rates of the non-saving income will be applied on this 10,000. So annual allowance charge is treated as non-saving income, and tax rates are applied of non-saving income at the end. At the end. Simply, let's say you have computed the income tax liability, but after that you just came to know there is an annual allowance charge. Then at the last value on which you will apply the tax rate, it is going to be the annual allowance charge. And applicable tax rates are from the non-saving income. So if someone has contributed less than the annual allowance limit, then unused annual allowance is carried forward for 3 tax years and used on FIFO basis. If someone has contributed more than the 40,000 annual allowance limit, then excess additional contribution is treated as an annual allowance charge that is treated as your non-saving income, and you have to pay tax on that. And tax rate will be from the non-saving income at the end of other sources of income. So basically, annual allowance charge will be taxed at the last. Okay. Now let's see. For example, assuming the tax year is, let's say we have 1920, we have 2021, we have 2122, we have 2223, and let's say the current tax year is 2223. The current tax year is 2223. Current tax year. I just want to explain FIFO basis. The current tax year is 2223. Annual allowance of pension 40,000, 40,000, 40, and obviously 40. Okay. Assuming examiner has given you the information that previously this individual has contributed in gross PPC. Only we have gross PPC. Gross PPC in 1920 we have 30,000. In 2021 we have a gross PPC of 20,000. In 21-22, assuming we are having a gross PPC of 40,000. Okay. I just want to tell you one thing. Now, in 1920, the unused limit is 10,000. In 2021, the unused limit is 20,000. In 2021, we do not have any unused limit. In 22-23, we have a unused limit so far 40,000. Okay, now listen and listen carefully. Dear student, the current tax year is 22-23. Okay. For example, in current tax year, which is 22-23, this individual has contributed the gross PPC in the current tax year. In current tax year 22-23, gross personal pension contribution is 45,000. Repeat. In current tax year 22-23, gross PPC is 45,000. Requirement: calculate unused gross PPC, unused annual allowance, unused annual allowance limit, annual allowance limit carried forward. in 22-23. Dear student, this is the simple information. In the current tax year 22-23, gross PPC is 45,000. You need to calculate unused annual allowance limit carried forward in 22-23. Let me change the color. Okay, let me explain now. Dear students, the current tax year is 22-23. The current tax year is 22-23. First of all, your contribution of the current tax year will utilize annual allowance limit of the current tax year. After that, if your contribution is more than the 40,000 pound, then additional contribution will consume unused limits of the previous 3 tax years on FIFO basis. Repeat. First, current tax year annual allowance limit 40,000 is used by the current year contributions. If current year contribution is more than the 40,000 pound, then additional contribution utilizes unused annual allowance limit of the previous 3 tax years on FIFO basis. Let us apply this on this question. We are having a gross PPC of 45. So obviously the current tax year is 22-23. So first I'll be utilizing the current tax year 40,000. Okay, now after using the current year annual allowance limit, if your contribution is more than the 40,000 pound, then excess contribution will be used against the unused limits of previous 3 tax years on a FIFO basis. Let us first calculate previous 3 tax years. Now listen. If 22-23 is the current tax year, then we have previous 3 tax years 1, 2, and 3. Repeat, the current tax year is 22-23. Then obviously the previous 3 tax years are 21-22, 2021, 19-20. These are the previous 3 tax years. Okay. We use previous 3 tax years unused annual allowance limit on FIFO basis. FIFO means what? FIFO means when you'll be using the limit, first the first the limit will be utilized against 1920, then still you have contribution remaining that will come over here and then here. The meaning of FIFO is first in first come obviously out of previous 3 tax year. The first tax year was 1920. So from the current tax year, you will go 3 years back, and previous 3 tax years unused annual allowance limit will be utilized on FIFO basis, which means first we'll be using the unused limit of 1920, then 2021, and then 21-22. In our question, in this small example, in the current tax year, we just have a contribution of gross PPC of 45,000. First, out of 45, 40,000 is used in the current tax year. Then additional 5,000 we will go 3 years back and utilize the unused limits on FIFO basis. So the remaining 5,000 will be deducted from here. This is how we use our 45,000 limit. Now listen and listen carefully. Out of this, this is unused annual allowance. Unused annual allowance. We have 5,000 over here. We still have unused 20,000 over here. No more unused limits. Now listen. These are the unused annual allowance limits, but this is not the final answer. Now examiner is asking us to show how much unused annual allowance will be carried forward for 22-23. How much unused annual allowance will be carried forward at the end of 22-23? At the end of 22-23. Now listen and listen carefully. Obviously, when at the end of 22-23 we are carrying forward, so the next tax year is going to be 23-24. In another words, carry forward in the end of 22-23 will be the brought forward, you can say, for 23-24. Okay, what I really want to say, at the end of 22-23, we want to carry forward for the future. Unused limit of annual allowance can maximum be carried forward for the 3 tax years. Now listen and listen carefully. Basically, in 1920, we are having unused limit of 5,000, but this 5,000 cannot be carried forward further. Why this cannot be carried forward further? Because if I take 1920 unused limit, I also take 2021, assuming if I also take 21-22 and 23-24, so there is going to be 4 years. Maximum we can carry forward the unused limit for the 3 tax years. So the maximum, now we will count these 3 tax years. Unused limit of 2021, unused limit of 21-22 and 22-23 will be carried forward. In these 3 tax years, the unused limit is only 20,000, which means that the carry forward is 20,000. Now you cannot consider unused limit of 1920, which is 5,000, because if we count from 22-23, then they are going to be altogether 4 years. So maximum, actually you are carrying forward this for 23-24. So if your examiner is asking how much you can carry forward at the end of 22-23, so maximum you'll be counting 3 tax years. This time when you'll be counting 3 tax years, so you'll be counting number 1 is 22-23, another is 21-22 and 19-20. Then 2021. You cannot, basically 1920 unused limit cannot be carried forward at the end of 22-23, because at the end of 22-23, if you count, they become 4 years, like 1, 2, 3 and 4, and maximum unused limit can be carried forward for 3 years. In that case, we'll consider 2021 unused, 21-22 unused and 22-23 unused. Let me explain one more. Assuming the current tax year is again 22-23. Okay, now let's say the annual allowance limit is 40,000 pound. Assuming previously there's no unused limit, gross PPC is just 10,000. There's no other contribution by employer employee. There's nothing else. So unused limit is 30,000. Okay. This unused limit is carried forward. This unused limit is actually carried forward for 3 tax years and used on FIFO basis. You can carry forward this 30,000 unused limit for 3 tax years. 3 tax year means what? 23-24, 24-25, then 25-26. Repeat. The unused limit of 22-23, which is 30,000. This 30,000 can be carried forward for 3 tax years. 3 tax years if I carry forward, that is 1, 2 and 3. So unused limit can we can maximum carry forward for the 3 tax years. If you check over here, this unused limit of 10,000 can be carried forward for maximum 3 tax years: 2021 1, 21-22 and 23-20, 22-23. Out of that 10, we have used 5, still 5,000 is left. But the problem is this 5,000 can no more further carried forward, because 3 years time period has been passed. This 30,000 will be carried forward for the 3 tax years. Now, assuming we have annual allowance limit over here, obviously 40,000, same 40, 40. Okay, just an assumption. Okay, assuming that in 23-24 the gross PPC was 25. Okay, which means the unused is 15,000. Over here, the gross PPC is, let's say, examiner saying in 24-25 the gross PPC is 50,000. In 24-25 the gross PPC is 50,000. Now how to deal with that? Obviously first I'm going to deduct 40,000 from here, but still I have 10,000 additional contribution. That additional contribution will be utilized against unused limit of the previous 3 tax years on FIFO basis. Obviously from 24-25 if I go 3 years back I just have 2 years, 1 and 2. I do not have any other information of the previous tax year. No data is provided to me. So what I'm going to do, gross PPC. In the tax year 24-25, annual allowance limit is 40,000, but this individual has contributed 50,000 in 24-25. So what I'm doing, I'm deducting 40, number one, it becomes 0. Still 10,000 limit is 10,000 contribution is left. That additional 10,000 contribution is used against the unused limit of the previous 3 tax years on FIFO basis. But right now we don't have 3 tax years. In this example, we have just 2 tax years. So additional 10,000 will be deducted from here. Okay. Now assuming in 25-26, the gross PPC, I'm just assuming the gross PPC is, let's say, I'm having a gross PPC assuming 70,000. Fine. Assuming in the tax year 25-26, we are having a gross personal pension contribution 70,000. So now, dear student, I really want you try to solve the question how you will be allocating this 70,000. The current tax year is 25-26, in which examiner is saying that this individual has contributed gross 70,000. Okay. First, current year limit will be utilized. Out of 70,000, you have used 40,000 first in the current year against the current year annual allowance limit. Still 30,000 is left. Now listen and listen. The remaining 30,000 of the 25-26 tax year will be carried back. We can now what we can do. The remaining, the additional gross PPC can be utilized against the unused limit of the previous 3 tax years on FIFO basis. If I go back for 3 tax year from 25-26, that is going to be number 1, number 2, and number 3. And it will be used on FIFO basis. Now listen and listen carefully. Gross PPC. Out of this 30, we have already used 10,000. So, which means I can maximum set off 20,000 from here. And remaining 10,000 will be set off from here. This is fully utilized. Still unused is 5,000 and nothing. So this 5,000 obviously will be carried forward at the end of 25-26. So in other words, you can say the unused limit at the end of 25-26 will be 5,000. It is counted. Now listen and listen carefully. Let me repeat again, please be careful. In 24-25, annual allowance limit is 40,000. Examiner is saying this individual has contributed gross 50. So out of that 50, first you will have to use unused limit of the current tax year, which is 40. Still 10,000 is left. The remaining 10,000 will be set off against the unused limit of the previous 3 tax years. So I use from here. In 25-26, examiner has said, let's say this individual has contributed 70,000 gross. First 40,000 is set off against the 2526. Remaining 30,000 will be used against the unused limit of the previous three tax years on FIFO basis. And this is how I use that 30,000. Now, dear student, I strongly believe now you should be having a really good idea. If someone contributes more than the 40,000, then what do we do with the additional contribution? Then actually we check, is there any unused limit in the previous three tax year? If yes, then we try to use that additional contribution which is over and above the 40,000 against the unused limit of the previous three tax years on FIFO basis. Okay. So, okay, if someone has contributed, let's say more than the 40,000 and does not have any previous unused limit, then additional contribution is treated as an annual allowance charge, and on that annual allowance charge, you have to pay tax. Look at this question and please don't be confused with this number. Leave the number. Just take it as a question. Mr. N has an employment income 96,000. Mr. N is having an employment income 96,000. Following contributions were made in pension plan. Employee contribution in occupational pension is 35,000. We did discuss when employee is contributing in occupational pension plan, then it reduces the employment income. Employer's contribution in occupational pension plan is 15,000, which is an exempt benefit for the employee. Mr. N contribution in personal pension plan is 12,000 net and 15 is gross. Mr. N has no unused annual allowances. So previously he does not have any unused annual allowance. Only the current year 40,000 is available. You need to calculate tax payable. So I would say pause the video, attempt the question, try to calculate tax payable. Then obviously you can always unpause the video after attempting the question. So let me check where should I solve this question. Okay, just a minute. I need this data. Let me take the picture so that I can solve at the end of the page. Just a minute, you have to wait for 1 minute. Apologies for that. Okay, I have a question now. Yes, I believe, yes. Now let us solve. And again, dear student, do not confuse with this. Actually, advanced taxation, don't confuse with this. You are doing with me Finance Act 2022. Because whatever we are discussing, it is exactly same in 21-22. So do not be confused. Please don't be a child. Sir, we are a child. Okay, then grow up. Now fine. We are solving this Mr. N question. Who is having employment income 96,000. Who is having an employment income 96,000. Dear student, from this 96,000, we will deduct employees' contribution in occupational pension plan less employees' contribution or Mr. N contribution in occupational pension plan, which is 35,000. Employer's contribution is an exempt benefit. Employer's contribution in OPP is exempt benefit for the employee. And we did discuss already, if someone is contributing in the gross PPC for that particular individual is not an expense. Mr. N has a gross contribution in PPC. Gross PPC is 15,000, which is not an expense. So we get the net income. Let's see what is the amount of net income. Let me use the calculator. Dear student, from this 96,000 we will deduct 35. So the net income is 61,000. Net income is 61,000. From this 61,000 we will deduct personal allowance 12570. Here comes the taxable income. Here comes the taxable income. 61,000 minus 12570. I'm getting a taxable income 48,430. Now let us calculate income tax. Now listen and listen carefully. Actually, we know that the basic rate band limit is 37,700, but this 37,700 will be increased by the gross PPC which Mr. N has contributed for himself, which is 15,000. I'm not talking about anything about higher rate band because we know that this 15 will increase higher rate band also, but look at the taxable income which is just 48,430. So you should not be worried about the higher rate band, but definitely 15,000 will increase your higher rate band limit as well. So 37,700 plus 15,000. I'm getting the amount 52,700, which means that the basic rate band limit is now not 37,700. Now it has become 52,700 because of the gross PPC of 15,000. Simply, the entire income falls in basic rate band, which is a non-saving income, 48,430. Just take 20% of this. 48,430. If I take 20% of this, I'm getting 9,686. I'm getting 9,686. Okay. Now let us check. The annual allowance limit is 40,000. If there is any additional contribution than 40,000, it is treated as annual allowance charge. So if I go back to the question just to show you. Again, dear student, please do not confuse yourself with this. You are studying Finance Act 2022. So that is very important that I should tell you. Otherwise, you will keep asking the question. Leave this. You are studying Finance Act 2022. Okay. The annual allowance limit is 40,000. This limit is consumed, used by the employee contribution in Oppc, which is 35. Employer has also contributed 15. Great. And N has also contributed the gross PPC 15. So it means there is a negative amount. This negative amount is representing annual allowance charge. This is representing annual allowance charge. Let me check what is the amount of annual allowance charge. Dear student, the annual allowance charge is 20,000. Let me explain again. The annual allowance limit is 40,000 and this 40 is consumed by the employee's contribution of 35, employer's contribution of 35 and employee's gross PPC of 15. Employer is 15 of course. So from 40,000 if I deduct 35, 15 and 15, let me check. I made a mistake. I believe it is 25, not 20. Correction is needed. Just a minute, students. By mistake, I deducted 10, not 15. Okay. 40 minus this. So annual allowance charge will arise on 25,000. Comes on 25. So basically the annual allowance charge arises on 25,000. So additional contribution is 25. On this additional contribution of 25, you have to pay tax and applicable tax rates are from the non-saving income. Dear student, this is you can say your working one. The annual allowance limit is 40, but the contribution is 25,000 more than the limit. That is treated as annual allowance charge. Now come to the question. I'm not saying come to the party, I'm saying come to the question. Now listen and listen carefully. The basic rate band limit is 52,500. Out of this 52,500, dear student, we have already consumed the basic rate band up till 48,430. So how much space is left in the basic rate band? If I deduct 48,430 from 52,700, 52,700 minus 48,430. Dear student, I'm getting 4270. Repeat, in basic rate band, we still have a limit of 4,270. In basic rate band, we still have a limit of 4,270. On this 4,270, the applicable tax rate is 20%. Now we are charging tax on annual allowance charge. Annual allowance charge. Working one. 4270 into 20%. 4270 into 20%. I'm getting 854. Now listen and listen carefully. The total annual allowance charge is 25,000. But out of that 25, only 4270 actually falls in basic rate band. It means any amount which is over and above 4270 from the annual allowance charge actually falls in higher rate band where applicable tax rate is 40%. So which means annual allowance charge, you can do this 25 minus 4270, then 40%. Because out of 25, you have already taxed 4270. So 25,000 minus 4270 into 40%. Dear student, I'm getting 8,292. I'm getting 8,292. Let's add all of these. You will get income tax payable. This is your income tax payable. This is your income tax payable. So 9,686 plus 854 plus 8,292. I'm getting income tax payable 18,832. So dear student, income tax payable is 18,832. Dear student, I really want from every one of you, at the end of this lecture, I want you to solve this Mr. N question again at least 2 times. If not, then at least 1 time. But you have to solve the question immediately after the end of this lecture. And I'm not discussing any other rule in this lecture. Otherwise, the lecture will be even more than 1 hour, which I really don't like. But you might be finding that slowly and gradually we are coming in a rhythm, and now we are covering little bit more as compared to our previous lectures. So simply I would say, dear student, thank you very much for watching this lecture. Have a nice life. Thanks a lot.